welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today, the queen of eBay, Shelley Epperly. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And while Dean McMurray cannot join us today, we are especially happy to have a special guest joining us today. And she's cool for a number of different reasons. I'll go through them in inverse order. I'll save the best one for last. She's cool because she's a coach and she is directly involved with the Tya workshop organization. She does Tya boot camp and Tya Mastery and so forth. She is helping David to write his next book. That's a really cool thing. But the best thing of all about her is her name, Cat Wanders. I mean, what a great name. That is so cool. So, Cat, thank you for joining us on the program. We're really glad to have you here.
Indeed, thank you. And it's short for Katerina, so that's also pretty fun.
That's great. I love it. But I mean, that it almost made me ask, like, did you make that one up? It's such a good name. I mean, there are actresses who'd like to have that name. That's a good name.
Yeah, Katerina is my full name with the Q. That is my name. Yes.
Wow. That's really
cool.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the best names I've ever seen. They're really cool. So you got to tell. Oh, and by the way, she's a self-described Tya Sexpert. We got to find out what that's going to be about in a minute. But first, tell us about how you got involved in Tya in the first place, because that Tya has been like the topic for the last week. So we got to kind of pile on top of that one.
Yeah, I saw you had Brent on here yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was really good.
Yeah, it was
and we got David coming on tomorrow. It's even better.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, well, tell him I said hi. Oh, wait, I talk to him every day. But I'll tell him myself. So how I got started, I was listening to his podcast back when it first started, and I thought it was really interesting because I followed the law of attraction to an extent. Like I understood the concept. Honestly, it didn't resonate with me a whole lot, though, because my first introduction to it was the book The Secret, and that just... to my mind at the time in my early 20s, I remember thinking, well, this is materialistic, and like this is just not what I want at all. So I mean, I was literally a traveling circus performer, and I had I would go to India for 6 months at a time, and I purposely put myself in these situations where I didn't like money, and obviously I've changed a lot since then, but that was my point of view at the time. And I remember there was a line in The Secret that said, when you don't have anything going on, just focus on the things you want. And I put the book down. I'm like, no. Like,
I love it.
If I have downtime, I'm going to meditate. So that's kind of where I was. I was in a really different place back then, really kind of, yogier than now is what we used to call that. But
yogier than there's another great phrase. You just full of these great phrases. I love this.
So I came across David's podcast and just really liked it. And the fact that he was gay, and I think he was in San Francisco at the time, but I remember being like, awesome. Oh, someone I can actually get on board with. And I really loved the way the stream didn't sugarcoat things. So I was into his podcast for a little bit. I had sort of just discovered it when one of my editing clients, because I specialized in like editing channel books, told me, hey, have you ever heard of the Stream of David? Because there's an ad on his Instagram. He's looking for a book editor. And so I freaked out for a minute, and then so I emailed him, and I talked with my mentor about it. Like, hey, I have to email him. I have to edit his book. And so she helped me, and he ended up calling me, didn't interview any other editors, hired me on the spot.
Nice.
We talked for like 2.5 hours on FaceTime, loved him. I was such a fangirl. Like I was so excited about it. And that was kind of like the rest is history. I helped him with his book. I helped him publish it. Then I introduced him to my mentor who helped him create Tya Boot Camp. And I was one of the first ones in there because as soon as it existed, I'm like, you let me in, I'm going in. And I haven't looked back since. Like I got out of boot camp, immediately joined Mastery, and then the stream suggested he and I co-author the next book, which is all about the Tya practice. And we're done with it. It's going through its final stages of editing, and it's taken us, we've been writing it for 3 years, I think. So it's almost ready. I really do think it will be published by the end of 2021. So it'll be ready.
So for those of us that don't know what Tya Boot Camp is, do you have like a little elevator speech for that?
It's basically a step-by-step process of learning what he calls the Tya practice. And Tya, I don't know if this will be backwards if I hold up my tattoo, but
it's
forward. You got it.
So Tya, that's the logo for it, is stands for Trust Your Abundance. So it's
awesome.
it's similar. I mean, well, it's not similar to, it's not the law of attraction teaching. Like there is a lot of law of attraction teaching in it, but it's really more about just vibrational flow and like a different operating system for humanity. So, but it has evolved. I mean, it started out, he called it the law of attraction at the beginning, and it has evolved so much since then. So the boot camp program is like a step-by-step, it's all online, and there's mentors and coaches and steps where you learn what are called the 4 pillars of Tya. And a lot of this is in the book. It's like the bird's eye view is the book, but then the course just gets you into it and it changes your life. Like it's everyone I've seen go through it. So that's the best explanation I can give.
Cool.
That's a pretty good one, actually. I mean, I tried to give one yesterday, and the way I kind of described it was it's a combination of direct readings with a stream, or direct reading with a stream, direct personal coaching, modules that you study to do your own homework. There's group activity work. It's kind of like this overall package. It's the business side of what David does. And it's just this overall package for taking massive personal growth steps forward, financially, health-wise, relationship-wise, all the different ways that we tend to, as human beings trying to become conscious creators, we tend to step on our own toes, and this helps us stop stepping on our own toes. So that's essentially what it does.
That's a pretty good explanation too.
Yeah.
It's basically like school for life taught by the stream as your teacher.
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Nice. That sounds awesome.
And we've here on the show, we've had a fair amount of experience with him because David was a co-host on this show here for about 6 months, last half of last year. Yeah. Oh. And so got to know him pretty well. It's fun too, I have to admit. I don't know if you were aware of this, Kat, but back before he came on, I'd always had this desire, not to sit in the hot seat, but to interview Abraham Hicks. And then I heard about the stream. I said, whoa, that's just like interviewing Abraham. That'd be so great. And then I got the chance to do it, and it is a blast. I mean, because obviously on a podcast, I'm doing it from the perspective of what questions can I ask from the audience's point of view, right? Because I'm trying to make it broad enough that it appeals to everybody. But oh my goodness, the philosophical discussions that I ended up having with the stream were just wild. They just went off in all kinds of interesting directions.
Yeah, and yours especially. You really did get them into some interesting concepts.
It also helps that I have had probably 25 different life coaches as co-hosts over the years, so I picked up a lot of stuff, that I could draw upon. That definitely helped me a lot. But oh boy, I just love connecting into his stuff. Yeah. Really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah. What's crazy is I actually didn't know about Abraham Hicks until after I
found really cool. Yeah, that's very good.
I had heard some stuff, and I didn't really know like who Esther was or anything, and it wasn't until later. And then I actually read up on him, but not so much. I really like the stream. It's just they make sense to my brain.
Since the story you told about how, I mean, because people have reacted differently to The Secret, both to the movie and the book. Some people reacted well, other people not so well. You were in the not so well camp.
I haven't even seen the movie.
Okay, all right. Well, the movie's basically the book with video. I mean, literally, that's all it is. The dialogue is almost identical between the two. There's like a few variations. But the original Secret was based on the teachings of Abraham Hicks.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not surprising to me that you didn't know Abraham. Yeah. I mean, it just kind of, it fits. So I got to ask you also, because you gave me so much meat in that first bit that you talked about. I don't know that we'll even get through a third of it, but you got to talk about your first inclination to go out and be part of a traveling circus. I mean, I have not had anyone on the show who had that background. So you just got to touch on that for a minute. I mean, that's cool.
That's okay. I'll try to give you a very, very short version. I just out of college, I graduated really early. And so I graduated college really early. I had done the whole cheerleading thing, and I had done professional dance and modeling on the side. So I had like experience performing, but I didn't think that would actually go anywhere. So, I got an art history degree, an English degree. I was doing the whole school thing. And then I got, this great job out of college. And then one day I'm standing there realizing like, this is my life now. I just spent all these years to do this. And so I went home and I got rid of everything I owned and I bought a van and I took off. And so with my cat and so
how appropriate.
Yeah.
And that cat was really mad at me for that. She was happy. But so yeah, I took off and I just kind of started traveling, and I just met a traveling musician one day on the street who started telling me that he worked with elephants at a Renaissance fair, and if I wanted to go. And I was like, well, I'd been dancing on the streets for money, like belly dancing on the streets for money. And so
you want to clarify that?
Let's just clarify that real quick. And then traveling, and like I'd been to India, I'd been doing all this traveling. And I thought, well, okay, let's try that. And then that connected me. Those people also worked with circuses. And then so I was working with the animals, and then they're like, oh, hey,
that's awesome.
You have acrobatic experience. So the next thing I knew, I was doing acrobatics, and I did some fire performance, and did it for 14 years, and eventually settled down because I had my daughter while I was out there, and eventually, after some turmoil with her father not loving my lifestyle, and there was some fighting and some lawsuits involved, and I settled down and got her. So.
But on some level, you must have, to do it for 14 years. You had a love in there. That was a more than just a lifestyle. That was a love going on.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I did. It's just, it takes a lot out of your body to do that.
Sure.
And it's because, especially because not only is it a physical job, but it's, I mean, you're constantly moving. It's really hard on your body. You're dealing with extreme temperatures. You're sleeping in 102-degree weather. You may or may not have electricity or plumbing. Like it's you may or may not get stomped on by an elephant. You never know.
Yeah. No, those are serious considerations, and yet you kept going with it. That's how I knew how much you loved it, which is, I mean, I admire that. It took me a long time to really learn to trust just going after what I love doing. That's how I ended up doing the show here. So when I know somebody or meet somebody who did it from a very early age, I say, wow, I'm really impressed. So that's a good thing. All right. So let's fast forward then back to when you got involved with Tya. All right, I got to hit on the other one because this is just like one of those little bells that says, okay, you got to go answer this one. What's this about being a Tya Sexpert? What's that all about?
That's David's name for me now.
Okay.
I'm a sex coach. So he I don't know. I think he just kind of decided one day, we were doing a podcast interview, and he just decided I was now the Tya Sexpert. So it's stuck now, and other people come to me for sex and relationship advice. And sex coaching is very different than sex therapy. Like, I'm not a therapist. My licensing is only in coaching, and I have a very unique take on sex and sexuality. So depending on who comes to me, most of my clients are female. I do have some clients who are couples and that come to me together, and then others. A few men. I've coached a few men who just wanted to be better for their partner, but mostly that's a little awkward for me because I'm a woman and I'm not a man, and so I can't, like, I can definitely help with, like, here's seeing this side of it, but I'm not a man, and so I can't help in all.
Good thing you know that's helpful, actually.
Yeah. But I actually just finished. So my book, Sexually Empowered, is coming out tomorrow, actually.
Wow!
And
congratulations.
Yeah, so this will be book number 31 in my arsenal. So yeah, I have quite a few, and I have like a memoir detailing my circus years and things like that, and looking back and realizing that a lot of the lessons in that book came from the stream before I ever knew what the stream was.
Really?
Back in like the 90s and early 2000s. But nowadays, my teachings I have a whole series of sex books coming out, and it's part of a bigger brand called Living an Unedited Life, because I'm a book editor. So the unedited was kind of a little pun. Sure. Now I'm apparently starting a podcast, which David just announced yesterday. And so it's all kind of linked, but sexuality is a big part of what I teach. But I mean, I don't want to just limit myself to talking about sex only. So other concepts will be addressed in the podcast. I do have other books, like one on healthy boundaries coming out, another one about moving beyond slut shaming, and just how sexuality is so taboo in our society. And even in spiritual circles, there's a lot of taboo around it, saying, like, once you are intimate with someone, you only connect yourself to that person for 5 years energetically, and how that's why you need to have your partner should be few and far between. But the stream doesn't judge any of that. They think you can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to go out and be promiscuous, the stream's not going to judge you. There might be other reasons that may not be the best idea, but who are we to judge? Because everyone is on their own path. So a lot of what I teach is moving past guilt, shame, and judgment around it, and actually embracing what works for you, but also not pushing that on other people. Because, like, I'm a big part of the polyamory community, and a lot of people who are polyamorous, which means having multiple relationships at once, and everyone's aware that everyone is in this relationship. Like currently I have 2 partners, one is female, one is male, and everybody knows. And a lot of people who are polyamorous really judge monogamous people. They're like, oh, really? Well, they're not evolved because they're in a monogamous marriage. Well, there's nothing wrong with monogamy. If someone wants to be in a happy monogamous relationship, I'm happy to help you with that, because that works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for everyone. So that's where, and it's all taught from a Tya perspective. I
had no idea I was taboo. It's nice to know.
Are your books on Amazon?
Yeah, most of them. And I'm actually setting up a different website to sell them direct as well, because Amazon's been doing a lot of banning of certain subjects.
Really?
And I have a feeling with some of the stuff I get into, I've got that coming. And I'm not trying to put that out there in the universe, but I am aware. I am aware that this could happen. So I will be ready for it if it is. And in which case I'll sell direct. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll put out there that Amazon's going to continue to embrace you and embrace your teachings, and that it's just going to be a wonderful thing. So, yes, that's the only way to go as far as I'm concerned. I do like the fact, though, that you emphasized a key stream point, the idea of non-judgment. I'll tell you honestly, and if you've listened to the podcast in the past, you may have heard me touch on this before. I have mixed feelings about the word judgment, because the way most people use it is not the way I use it. But when I use it the way they mean it, then I agree with them. Yes, I don't want to be somebody who's into judgment. For me, judging is just discerning, but that's not the way most people think about it. Yeah.
No, exactly. That's actually, I have to be careful about that too, because honestly, nowadays I use the word judgment as it's universally thought of, because that's just how everyone's going to read into it. But yeah, discernment is really, like, honestly, there's nothing wrong with judging. It's
when you understand it that way.
Yeah, we are judging all the time. Where it becomes an issue for a lot of people is when you start forcing your opinions on someone else. For instance, someone who's polyamorous thinking everyone should be, or someone who's monogamous thinking that polyamory is immoral and things like that, or just that like certain like sexual kinks and fetishes should not be practiced, or if one partner has a certain kink and the other partner thinks that's disgusting, well, that's a problem and it needs to be worked out. But no one should shame someone for wanting something or not wanting something. It just has to be worked out differently.
Yeah. Oh, that makes total sense. No doubt about it. Actually, I'm with you completely on the discernment and so forth. The way I look at it is, if we didn't judge, we'd be hitting each other's cars and we'd be bouncing off of each other in the supermarkets. And you have to be able to judge things like distance and proximity and so forth. Otherwise, you can't do anything in life.
That's true. That's true. I'm a skydiver, and if I didn't judge distance, I could really hurt myself.
Well, absolutely. Yes. Definitely want to have a good sense of judgment for that. So, okay. Well, then that gives us a nice kind of a set of parameters to have the rest of our conversation in. So thank you for cluing us in on all that. What role do you play now within the Tya circle? In other words, I've gotten my first taste of what the Tya Facebook group is, the broader one. I've been welcomed into the private one that you get become a member of once you've actually signed up for the program. And I barely know anybody there other than to say, oh, well, hello. But what's your role in that community at this point? I mean, how do you participate? Other than the fact that you are writing David's book for him, which is so minimal, but besides that part.
So I'm not writing the book for him. We're writing it together.
Correct. I apologize.
I'd say it's equally, actually it's about a third, and a third. No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a little bit him, mostly the stream. So it's like half the stream, half me, and then a little bit of his actual words in there. Whereas his first book was like half him, half the stream. This time it's me in the stream. So, but yeah, he's actually a fantastic writer. He keeps saying, "Oh, I'm dyslexic." No, he's wonderful.
I've heard that from so many people who are dyslexic and noticed that they had much better skills than what they actually claimed. Right?
Oh, yeah, I've read a lot of books in my editing career, and he's wonderful. But anyway, my part in the community. So I'm one of the Tya Masters. I was one of the first 2, actually. Stacy is the only one in Mastery who got in there before me. So from the beginning of Tya Mastery, when David first started it, I hopped in because I would probably follow him.
Explain what a master is. I mean, we kind of imagine, but it has very definite meaning to it.
Yeah, it turns out we don't get cloaks and medallions. I was really disappointed to find out about that. Although I am actually writing a science fiction series called The Streamiverse, and Tya is actually in there, and there are Tya Masters, and we have cloaks. But but that's all in my imagination.
I'll have to check that one out. Well, that's all right. That's where everything starts. I'm okay with that.
So it's basically, it started out, gosh, there were, I think, 4 of us at the beginning. And 2 of us are still in there, because it's not like once you're in, it's not like you're in forever. It's each year you decide to stay. So it's a year-long program. It's basically boot camp on steroids, but with no there's no, this sounds so bad, but there's no structure. And there's not supposed to be. It's not like boot camp is very, very structured. You have your steps, and it's an actual process laid out in front of you. There's none of that in Mastery.
Okay.
And so after we finished boot camp, there's, the groups of us, or the few of us who got really involved with the practice. David started Mastery pretty much for us, and it has grown now. Like Dan, who's on here a lot, he's in there now.
Right.
So I think is there 8 of us now? I think there are 8 or 9 of us. I should have known that when I got on here, but
we won't hold it against you, I promise.
But yes, we don't operate there's no online portal or anything. It's literally bi-weekly calls that are 2 hours, and he brings the stream in for that. We take turns hosting. So each one of us, because we're all masters, the idea is that we're all of like equal standing in the group. So one of us leads the group each time, and we go in order of seniority. And then David, when he gets to his turn, we never really know what's going to happen. Usually we bring in the stream, and we also get unlimited stream sessions. So that, like, as much as I love the group calls, I do, but those unlimited one-on-one stream sessions I get make it worth it. And this is my 4th year in Mastery. So
are you guys part of the training of the boot camp, or is that just a whole separate thing?
Some of us are. A few of us are more involved in the actual business side of things. I am pretty involved because I'm the editor, and I help with like copywriting, and actually David and I are starting a publishing company. So
nice.
That is where.
Wow, you are a busy woman. You know that?
I am. It's not necessarily a good thing. So I'm working on maybe not doing quite as much. My biggest focus right now is really the Tya practice, and like anything that branches out from the Tya practice or stems back to the Tya practice is where my focus is now. So I've just been kind of pushing everything else away, and both energetically and physically pushing it away, because literally I stopped getting a lot of my normal editing clients. Like only Tya has really been the big focus in my life. So I'm also a Tya coach, and I am active in the group, not as much as I could be. I'm not a huge Facebook fan. I'm trying to get my feet wet in there a little more, but yeah, coaching, and mostly just I'm handling the publishing side. And
what's different about being a Tya coach? I mean, coaching, I think in general, we all have some sort of sense of what that's about, but specifically where Tya is concerned, what makes it different to be a Tya coach?
Every session we have, I mean, obviously is unique, because every boot camper is going to be in a completely different position, but it's applying the Tya principles to whatever the student is going through. So in order to be a Tya coach, I want to say there are only 3 of us right now. I think there's only 3 of us right now, because we're working on having a system to make more certified Tya coaches, but like you have to really understand the practice and be deep in the practice to coach someone else. Like the mentorship program is different. The mentorship program in Tya consists of people who've been through boot camp, and now they're ready to mentor someone else who's going through it. And and a lot of them are fairly fresh out of boot camp, or they've been out for a while, but like it's a big part of their lives. But like the coaches, like we're in Mastery, and this is. And it's called Mastery, even though the first rule is that there are no rules in Tya. And the first rule of Mastery is that you never master it. So it's
absolutely, I like that.
Even though we are quote unquote masters, we're not.
I tried to trip Dan up on that the other day. He says, no, I'm not a master.
Yeah. But the thing about being a master is Tya has mastered our lives. Like every single waking moment this is applied in my life. There isn't a single second that goes by that this isn't on my mind, or something comes up and I immediately say, okay, if I take fear and judgment out of the situation, where am I? Okay, that's my next step. So when coaching, that's the first thing we bring up. Is a lot of people come with usually when someone signs up for a coaching session, they have some sort of catastrophic thing that's happening to them at that moment that they're what we call DTS, or down the spiral, about, which means they're just kind of in a low negative, that which we label negative, place about it. And so a lot of times what I'm doing, instead of being like, okay, let's figure this out, is, okay, so what if the worst happens?
Oh, I love that approach.
Like, so
I love that too.
And also to say so what without sounding like a complete jerk, but
yeah, but essentially that's what you're driving at.
Yeah, and it's to let go of the outcome of, like, I was working with one woman who's terrified her child was going to get taken away. And it's like, okay, so what if that happens? And it's interesting because I was in that exact situation when I was in boot camp. When I started boot camp, I was in the middle of not in the middle, I was at the beginning of that custody battle. And by the end of boot camp, I had my kid. But what really made peace with that was accepting that I might not win this. I might not get her. And then what? Well, I'll be okay. She'll be an adult and she'll remember that I fought for her. And so coaching people into setting the intention for the best possible outcome is pretty much what we do.
That's a great thing to do. I didn't realize that was the approach you guys took. That's something that I've done informally when, I'm not a coach. I never wanted to really be a coach. I tried it for like 2 weeks and I said, no, this isn't for me. But informally, when I've tried to help people out, that's been one of my favorite things to do, is to ask them that exact question. What's the worst possible scenario? What happens if the worst thing happens?
I've used that too. I've definitely used that coaching people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been using that since way before I discovered Tya. Like one of my books, Overcoming Chronic Pain Through Yoga, which is interesting because it's still to this day my best-selling book, and it's just so not who I am anymore. It's not how I teach. But that was when I was on my little spiritual pedestal for a while there. But we don't talk about that time. But it's still one of my, like, the concepts behind it. I actually need to go back and do some editing in there because it's still very much how I overcame chronic pain and how I helped a lot of my clients.
Oh, wow. So
but it's very much it's so opposite of what we're trained to do, but it's like, let's really think about the worst possible scenario and just feel it and get in there. And like, okay, what's the worst possible? Is it that you die, or is it that you're in horrible pain? Well, which is worse to you? For me, pain is way worse than dying. So let's sit with that and think about it. Most people really get uncomfortable doing that, but when you do, it's so empowering to actually realize that nothing can really hurt you.
Yes.
Not really.
That's a breakthrough moment when you realize that. I mean, it's one thing to be told that it was true, but to experience it is quite a different thing. That's something, I'm not even sure you can teach that.
No. No, you can tell someone, but they have to go and figure it out themselves. And you can teach, well, you can't teach, but you can coach them into doing it themselves. But I mean, they have to do the work. It's death is a big fear for a lot of people. And like, I eradicated my fear of death a while ago. I thought I did a few times, but I hadn't completely. And someone recently asked me, like, so, are you like honestly okay with the fact that you might die very young? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Great, I'm good. And it took a lot of experiences to get me to that point. But now I can confidently say I'm there. Whereas I think I probably would have said I was there like 6 years ago, and I wasn't.
Now you got me wondering if I am. I mean, up until this conversation, I would have said, oh, yeah, I'm fine with it. And 20 years ago, I would have been completely not fine with it. But now I'm wondering.
Well, have you had a crazy near-death experience?
Not personally.
That's usually how you know. Is when you're actually there. And it's like, oh, am I good? Like, am I okay with this? And that's usually how you know for sure.
I've never had a near-death experience, but I've been so sick that I felt like it would feel better to die right now. Like, and not like, some long drawn out illness or something, but just been in that moment where you're just like, if I have to live any longer feeling this crappy, I'd rather just move on, Yeah.
Yep.
Understandable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say I've had that experience. What I had that well, for me, it was more just kind of over the time period transitional over the course of like 20 years. But the closest I can come to a breakthrough moment is when my dad died. He died in 2008, just before the financial crisis. And I had the very strange experience of doing all my mourning before he died. And then after he died, I was like, fine. I thought, this isn't the way this is supposed to work. I've been told very clearly, you do the mourning after the person dies, but that's not what happened. And then we had a couple of events happen where my sister got contacted him shortly after he passed. I had a dream where I got to meet with him and talk with him about 2 months afterward. And after that, I was fine. Not only was I fine with his death, I was just fine with death. Like, oh, okay. I now have what I consider to be confirmation that, yeah, we really do continue. Everything's fine. My dad's great. Like, okay. In fact, it was really strange. I've told this story a few times before, but it was really strange when we went to the memorial service after he passed, because we're sitting, this is in a Protestant church. I think it was, I can't remember, maybe a congregational, I'm not sure. But we're sitting in an ante room with the minister, and everybody's filing in and so forth. And my family and I, we're all just chatting. We're having a great time. And the minister's looking around at us. And it finally dawned on me, he was there to comfort us if we didn't need comforting. It was really a strange experience. And then afterward, they have what they call a fellowship hall. So after the service, we went to the fellowship hall to meet with everybody, and we're comforting everybody else. They're all coming up to us, and of course they're saying, we're so sorry for your loss and so forth. And they're the ones who are doing the mourning. We're saying, oh, he's okay, he's fine. Very strange. But that experience was kind of like it was almost like my graduation ceremony. That's the way I kind of think about it. So yeah, weird.
That's so interesting, because I had exactly the same experience when my dad
Did you
died.
really?
Yeah, in 2017, and
Wow.
we knew he was dying. They had moved him to hospice. He was still home, but I moved in with him for the last 3 months of his life and took care of him, changed his diapers, fed him, gave him medicine, like all the stuff he didn't want his daughter doing.
Yeah, sure.
But I did all my mourning before he died, to the point where I was holding his hand when he died, and my sister was holding his other hand, and we were like, finally. Like he was so ready to go, and he would wake up in the mornings and be like, I am still here. Like that was such a beautiful experience, because like by the time he was gone, we were all like, is there going to be another hit? Like, are we going to grieve more? Like, no. We did that when we knew he was dying, and that was like my sisters and I all like huddled together over him, but he was so fine. Like he was so fine with it, and he was having a conversation with someone at the end of his bed that none of us could see, and like he was absolutely ready, and that was really empowering for me to be like, okay, he really is good. Like it's there is nothing to be afraid of here.
And that is a great feeling, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I know that feeling from from the similar experience, when you know that the other person is not only in a good place, but they are personally in a good place, like emotionally, and who their essence is. Their essence feels good in that place.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the little things that happened afterward, my sister, I mentioned there was a after death contact from him. My sister received the contact. And it was just a few days afterwards, she and my mom were at my mom's church. They were in a service, and my sister started getting this massive headache. And she had some training with how you connect psychically to the other side and realized this could be a contact. And so she instantly thought of my dad and put out the message, Dad, is that you? Got back an instant yes. And my sister, I don't know why she did this to this day, but this is my sister. She says, what's it like on the other side? And my dad comes back with the answer, festive. And when she told me that story, I knew it was true, because my sister has never used the word festive in her life, but my dad would use it in spades. So of course it was definitely my dad who said that. And it just that put everything at ease, because then I knew Dad was fine, and I knew that it was a true story, and it was like everything was okay.
It was beautiful.
It was just it. It was over. Done. Okay. Next. So yeah.
Mine showed up in my dreams a lot. Like,
really?
It's actually, dreams are kind of one of those things for me. Like when I first went through Tya boot camp, they said that I think I was the first Tya boot camper to start channeling the stream myself. And other people have done it now. Like a couple of the other Tya masters also can now channel the stream, but it was definitely like new for me. But my dreams were where they would come through. So like I would come through, I'd start writing it down, and then all of a sudden the stream messages started coming through. And actually in the Tya book, I share a couple of them, and it's you can tell it's them. It's like the same voice and everything when they talk to me versus David. But I to this day get visits. Get visits from all sorts of things and a lot of clarity in my dreams. And actually just last night I had a dream about the dog that I had been my best friend and I had a dog we traveled with in our travels and everything, and she's getting older, and I had a dream about her last night, and I woke up thinking I better call Telly and see if Tattoo's okay, because Tattoo's the dog. I'm like, what's going on? And just as I picked up my phone, there was a Facebook notification, and she had tagged me to say goodbye, Tattoo, and I'm like, okay. So I was like, well, all right. I saw that coming. All right then.
Yeah. That's interesting too, that you guys are now able to channel the stream yourselves. That's actually sort of been a quiet goal of my own. Not that I don't want to really be a channel. I just want to be able to have the conversation, so to speak. So to hear that you guys have been able to do that is pretty cool.
I believe that everyone can. I mean,
we're all connected to it.
Everyone's a channel for the stream. The stream is the same as, like all these there's all these channels out there. And I mean, I really believe everyone's channeling the same thing. It's just a matter of different types of connections and things. But mine's written. Like, I can't do what David does. And because everyone thinks, well, you can talk to the stream yourself. Why do you care that you get one-on-one stream sessions? Like, there is a big difference between getting a few paragraphs that you write down first thing in the morning when you're barely conscious versus sitting down and having a conversation where you can ask them questions. And the stream is very different with each person one-on-one. Like with me, they'll get very playful and make jokes with me. The first time I ever heard the stream make a joke was when I was interviewing them on a summit, and their exact words, they'd said something really powerful, and I was like, wow, damn. And they go, well, we would drop David's microphone, but it would make a loud noise.
I love it.
I was like, they just made a joke, but they do like to make jokes. And then they're also very like detail oriented with me. They'll give me timelines and homework. And like with the book that David and I are writing, they're very like, it's going to have these pictures and these images and these diagrams. And this section is going to say this, and you're going to do this. I'm like, okay, I'm writing this down. Okay. So they're all about specificity with me because that's how I am. Whereas like with someone else, they might be really esoteric or very abstract or, very simple. They might, like when they talk to my daughter, they simplify everything because, she's 12. So they're very careful not to scare her because she asks about death and a lot. Like her first question for the stream was, where do we go when we die? And once she asked about the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay.
I love it.
I learn all kinds of things from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shelley. You go ahead.
I was just going to say they meet us where we're at.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I like spreadsheets and to-do lists and outlines, so that's what they give me.
That's what they give you. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, I'm looking forward to. I get my first private session with a stream on Thursday after the show that I do with Dan and Alex, and I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm also there's like a little piece of me. I mentioned this on the show last Wednesday with my two co-hosts, who are both life coaches, and we're very interested in the same part of it because apparently it's not like the stream asks you to get to the root of your own stuff. They just simply tell you this is the root of your own stuff, and we're all wondering like, what are they going to tell me? Should I be dreading this? I don't know. But I'm seriously, I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be interesting to see, what do they think my top 3 transgressors are? My first question is going to be, what is the 4th and 5th? I'm just kind of really curious to see what they're going to come up with because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that for me. With when my transgressor session came up, they're like, we're not going to tell you. You need to do this on your own. Okay. Like it says right here, you're going to help me figure it out. And they're like, you'll figure it out. I'm like, this is false advertising. And they're like, we're just not going to do it for you. Okay.
Well, at least they're straight about it. That's good.
Yeah, they basically said, you already know. And I'm like, okay, so is it this and this and this? And they're like,
I sense an duh there. Yeah, okay.
Are you going to record it? Well,
I think David records it each time, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll record all the sessions and send you the recording afterward. I still have all mine. and I do rewatch them sometimes and glean new little bits of information that do show up in my books and things like that. So,
well, my intention is actually to pick out a few pieces and actually play them on the show so that people can get a sense of what it's like. So cool. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to turn this into an opportunity for all listeners to get a sense of what you're doing and what you're getting when you sign up for something like this, because there's a serious investment that's involved. It's a financial investment, it's a time investment, it's an emotional investment, and it's an investment in being willing to make some pretty serious changes in your life. So that's kind of scary. It's kind of daunting, and so I figured the more that I can help to take that fear away just by showing people, well, here's what actually happens, I think more and more people will feel like, okay, I can do some growing myself. It's okay. Yeah,
and David warns that while boot camp has caused some marriages, it's caused a lot more divorces. So it's my relationship ended when I was in there, and it was definitely, and it had been a pretty long-term relationship, and but it ended so peacefully. Like, it was just, we're not vibing the same, and that's okay.
What you're basically talking about is the ability of the two people involved to recognize where they really are in their lives, and to decide, is this really the route we want to be on together, or is it time to go in separate directions, and that there's nothing really wrong with that. That's important. So, okay, well, this is interesting. Shelley, I've been dominating here because, as usual, I'm
That's okay.
Where Tya is concerned. But do you want to jump in do you have anything that you were asking about or thinking about asking?
No, I've been jumping in a little here and there.
You have?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I wasn't squashing you.
I'm fascinated with your session on Thursday. You're just like, it'll be cool. I'm like, oh my God, that would be so cool.
Well, it's going to be a different experience because, like I said, I've interviewed the stream many times here on the show, but that's interviewing for the public. This time it's for me, and I'm not really sure what to expect there.
Yeah, it's different. It's like indescribably different, because even in Tya Mastery, we get really personal, and they will call us out. Because we're such a tight-knit group, like these, especially we've had two newest additions, like Dan and this other person, Nicole, and obviously they it's such a, like, they fit right in. It's like, hey, come on, join the huddle. But it's still the ones who started out in there with me, very specifically Stacy and Matt, who I'm assuming you'll probably end up interviewing.
I've actually done a couple of shows with Matt, so I know who Matt is. Yeah,
I haven't seen the ones with Matt on here. Okay, I'm gonna have to find
he hasn't been on LA today. I did a summit. Let's see. I think it was one of the stream summits I did.
Okay.
And there was something else with him, but I can't remember what. But
Okay. Yeah. So
no in-depth conversations yet, but that'll come.
Yeah, and they will get in depth.
I'm sure they will. From my experience. Yes.
Yeah, but Stacy and Matt, like those two, Matt joined, I don't know, like maybe 6 months after me. So like pretty much at the beginning too. So like those two, I feel like we've been on such a journey with David from the beginning. I've never met any of them in person. And I literally feel like
wild?
I could trust them with my entire life. Like the connection there is so deep, and we know so many deep, intimate things about each other. And so the stream has no problem calling us out in front of everyone.
I get you.
So it's definitely like we've learned some stuff about David where he's like, oh, they told you that, huh? It's so personal. And then after Stacy and Matt came like Elisha and Carrie and I have met in person, but before she was in Mastery. So like it's each person that comes in is so immediately like scooped into this like little family, but it's deeper than a family. It's hard to explain, but they get so intimate and detailed with us to the point where someone will say, okay, anyone else have a question for the stream? And the stream will go, Elisha, you have something to say to us. And so like she'll pop back on the camera like, okay. But even so, with all that, it's like a one-on-one, and it's really deep and personal, but it's still different from your actual one-on-one. Like I've gotten into detailed conversations about my relationships where they've talked about my significant others, and they basically told me that one of my relationships was probably not so good. They're like, you need to assess if this is someone you want to intertwine yourself with for much longer. And looking back, I'm like, I should have paid more attention to that. Like,
well, that's the way it normally goes in life, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
you know, we take a long time very often before we let go of stuff, whether it be humans or experiences or lifestyles or whatever it might be. We just do. You know, we hang on.
Yeah.
We're gatherers.
Yeah, but they'll get specific and they will name names, and they will call stuff out, and it's fascinating to just. And it's different with each one. Like one time I needed something and they ended up giving me like a reading that I didn't ask for, that I wasn't expecting.
Oh my.
Or I've been talking to David in a business meeting and the stream has just showed up to talk to him. And he, right after saying, he's like, yeah, I mean, you don't need the stream. We'll just talk. And then all of a sudden he's like, and we are here. Okay. So they really wanted to talk to me. Got it. And they'll tell me things like they've given me business advice and like, here's what you need to be doing. And so just know that it's completely different every time, but you'll get exactly what you needed out of it.
I think you've confirmed all my worst fears. I mean, that's a good thing, but
and it's never scary. They've never told me anything I didn't want to hear. Like there were definitely certain things, like I had 2 partners at one point that were not getting along well, and they were not taking well to the fact that they weren't the only one in my life. And I brought it up to the stream, and they basically told me what exactly was about to happen, and it did. And I was like, okay, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, put the stream aside for a second. I've always wondered about that side of it. I think this may be one reason why on the one hand, I've wanted to have a stream type connection. On the other hand, I've been resistant to it because there's always that piece of me that says, do I really want to know what's about to happen? I mean, do I really want to know that? And I kind of think maybe, but I'm not 100% sure.
They won't tell you unless it's necessary. They always say like, we're not in the business of predicting the future, even though they totally are. Like it's like, well, I guess it's true. They're not in the business.
Are they in the business of predicting the future, or are they in business of telling you what you're lining up for yourself?
Exactly.
That's not necessarily the same thing.
And it's definitely very much like they always say, we're not in the business of telling the future, but like if they tell you something that's about to happen, that's very unusual. And it's usually for very good reason. Like, look out for this. And
that's how I feel about like when I read tarot cards, because there's been a few times, because my tarot readings are pretty positive and I don't get into a lot of the woo-woo. I try to just be no nonsense, straightforward. And there's been times when cards have come up and I'm like, there is something gonna happen, you know, it's like their future card or whatever, and it's like, you need to be careful, you know. And then it's like within a week or two, you know, I had a friend that was actually attacked in her home, and it scared her so bad she wouldn't have a reading for a long time. And I'm like, it wasn't like the cards did that. Like it wasn't the reading's fault. It was because you were told to be careful and you still were leaving your house unlocked, and you know, and like some pregnancies, like, you know, I see a baby and you know, the future is a baby, and then they're like, no. And then I hear like 2 weeks later, oh my God, my girlfriend was pregnant and I didn't even know it. And it's like, so that was already happening. It wasn't like telling the future, but you know, just stuff like that. And I look at reading tarot cards as kind of tapping into that source energy, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really specific too. Like the stream won't, well, maybe they will. I'm sure they could, but they've never gotten that specific with me. It's the best example I can think of is I was in this weird place of like complacency for like 6 months. I wasn't up the spiral. I wasn't down the spiral. I was I wanted to be left alone. I just did not care about things. Everything in my life was so good. I'm like, okay, I have an amazing relationship. My romantic life is perfect. My financial life is perfect. My health is perfect. Everything is perfect. I have everything I want. And I kind of like just didn't want to mess with it because I'm like, everything's perfect. And so that was actually when I got the stream session forced on me.
No, okay.
that the stream just showed up and started talking to me. And they basically said, like, you don't care about anything right now. We're not judging that, but something's going to happen that's going to make you care. And like 3 days later, my car got stolen. And I was like, I really loved that car. There was so much custom work on it. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, it's fine. It's a Honda. It's in a chop shop because it had all this custom stuff. It's cool. And I went and bought a new car that day. And it ended up being the last car on the lot of that year in the color that I wanted. They're not making that car again.
Oh, of course,
Literally, it was the very last one. I got a great deal on it. I drove the car home. I called it my X-Wing Starfighter because my Millennium Falcon was what got stolen.
Oh.
And then I'm like, okay, great. I'm up the spiral now. Got a new car. Everything's fine. Lost my Millennium Falcon. A week later, I get a call. They found the Millennium Falcon in perfect condition.
In perfect condition. Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and now I have both of them. Okay. So that was definitely, but like when it first happened, I remember being like, the stream told me about this and I didn't. It's not that I didn't listen. It was just kind of like there was nothing I could do. Like they told me like something's going to happen that's going to make you care. But I didn't care. So it was like, it had to happen that way. So.
It's kind of like saying, I'm going to sneak up on you when least expect it. I'm going to scare you. Like, how am I supposed to plan for that?
Yeah, you can't. There's nothing you can do.
That feeling that you're talking about, I can so relate to that. I felt that so many times in the last couple of years where I'm just like, I don't even feel like progressing is necessary right now. I'm just like in a really good place in my life. And then I'm just like, no, I'm here to learn and grow. Like you can't stay stagnant for too long, you know?
Yeah. Well, actually shortly after that, luckily that happened because that was kind of the beginning, but then like they talk about your 3 major spinning plates, romance, health, and finances. Mm-hmm. And it's rare that you have all 3 spinning perfectly. It's possible, of course, you can have whatever you want, but it's rare. And at that time in my life, all of those plates were spinning beautifully. Everything was perfect. And then one by one, each plate went flying. And I'm standing there like, okay.
Welcome to the polarity.
Like, all right, polarity, here we go. But I never really let myself get down about it. And
see, now that to me is growth right there. That to me shows you how far you had grown because you had this great situation. Everything falls apart. And you say, oh, well.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Honestly, it was kind of fun to like watch everything go crashing and then figure out how to put it all back together and then wait for the miracle to happen one by one. And, like, I don't know, obstacles are almost entertaining now. It's like being in a haunted house. And it's like,
I love that.
One of the other Tya Masters said that. She's like, being DTS is like being in a haunted house or watching a horror movie. It's scary and it's fun and you know it's going to be over soon, but it's like, and then you get out of there and you're like, whoa, that was a lot. Okay, that's over. But it was fun and you move on. And it's a lot like that.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Especially since for myself personally, I've never really had an interest in horror movies, for instance. I mean, I would go to a horror movie. I remember when the first Alien movie came out in the early 1980s.
I love that.
A friend of mine dragged me there. I mean, literally, I had no interest in seeing it at all. He dragged me there. It got to the scene where the alien eats his way out of the guy's belly. And my friend who had dragged me there grabs me by the shirt and says, "We're leaving." And everybody's freaking out around the theater. And I am sitting here like this. Trying to avoid ruining the experience for everybody else. I mean, that's just the way I've always been about horror. It's like, oh, you can't convince me of this. I'm sorry. Good luck, but it's not happening. So now I'm beginning to wonder, okay, what am I setting myself up for?
Yeah. See, I love horror books. I don't like horror. I actually don't really like movies as much unless they're superheroes. I like superheroes.
You like a Stephen King type thing, or what do you like?
I do love. I've read a lot of Stephen King, but a lot of the books I write, actually, I have a whole bunch of circus horror books that I'm working on.
Really?
I was hesitant to put out at first because kind of like with my brand, putting out scary stuff was like, but I don't care anymore. I don't care what people think of me anymore.
Good for you.
At all. It is like it's gone. Like it's all of the cares in the world are gone. And so I'm just writing whatever I want. But a lot of my horror stuff is very, very dark and twisted. And I realize I read a lot of that dark and twisted stuff and I love it. But I'm a pretty bubbly, happy person overall. So I do enjoy like having that weird part of me indulged because it's so close to or so far from reality. Like it's just so not real. And I've never been one to like be afraid if there's a ghost around the corner. Granted, I'm not into ghosts. I'm more into like zombies. I really like zombies a lot. Vampires are really cool. Monsters, but not ghosts. Ghosts don't interest me.
I'm not sure if this is a ghost experience or not. I did have a ghost experience and it did. I don't know if it scared me, but it startled me because I was asleep and I had this face come at me.
That's when you have
really, really close. and it said, "Hello." And I said, "Whoa, what the hell is that?" So was I scared? I guess I was startled very strongly. Was I scared? I wasn't really scared of it. I didn't feel like it was going to hurt me or something like that. But
I had a ghost experience in my 20s. And actually, now that you say that, I wonder if that's why I'm not a fan of ghost stories because it's too close to reality for me. Like, I think everything else is kind of like, oh, it's so fun because it's not real. Whereas I've seen a ghost. So, yeah.
Understandable. Yeah. This whole realm that we're in, I mean, I call it the conscious creator realm. People call it spirituality. They call it the energy realm. They call it a whole bunch of things. But this whole realm is just full of all kinds of stuff. People with different perspectives, things that they're interested in, and so forth. And a lot of it, I don't have any interest in it at all. And some of the stuff I have no interest in. Other people are like, oh, they're so engrossed in that part of it.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just an indication of how much variety there is in this universe. I mean, there's enough variety for everybody.
Yeah, and it suits, like, everyone has their own thing that really suits them. Like, I look back to, I was raised super religious, and a lot of the people I grew up with are still really into that. I'm like, that is so great that it's working for you. Please don't judge me that it doesn't work for me. And actually judge me if you want. I don't care. I don't care. But like in the spiritual community, because I started getting into like a lot of occultism. I've studied every religion. I love them all. But getting out of religion and into kind of the spiritual world, a lot of my friends are really into reading like, oh, what is your soul's journey or something. There are a whole bunch of books on like, this is exactly what happens when you leave the physical body, and this is what's happening in this realm, and there's this many chakras and this many dimensions, and your soul group when you get to your death experience. And isn't this amazing? I'm like, who cares? I'm like, why do you care about, like, none of this affects me right now. Like, why would I give a crap about any of it? And they're like, what? This doesn't amaze you?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know why this is interesting to you, but that's like, that was kind of one of those moments of, okay, we're really different people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's so great that it's so fascinating and transformative for them, like studying past lives and things like that. I know people really into studying past lives, and it's very beneficial for them. I got into it for a while as well. Now I don't care. Like, I just like that.
I get it. I mean, for myself, I like hearing other people's enthusiasm. So I almost don't even care what it is they're into. I mean, to a certain degree, I do. There's some things I just don't want to go near, but for the most part, I don't really care what it is they're into. But when I hear their passion for it, that's what I love.
Yep.
That to me is the really cool part.
Yep.
So I think that's why I do a podcast. I get to interview all kinds of people with all kinds of interesting viewpoints.
Yeah, I love hearing about what people are interested in, because I'll listen like, that's fascinating. As long as you don't try to convert me, I'm all on
board. Don't push it on me.
Well, the way I look at it is good luck converting me. I mean, you don't have a prayer, but have at it if you like. It's just not going to really pay off for you. But I'll agree with everything, and then you won't know where you are.
Actually, I have a lot of psychic medium friends, and anyone who's a psychic medium, like, that's so great. Like, and I do believe it works. Like, I'm not saying I don't believe in what they're doing, but I don't know if it would work for me, because I don't give power to it. So it's like, what will work for someone else because they give power to it isn't going to work for someone else. Like, people who don't believe in energy healing, like, it doesn't work. I'm like, well, of course it doesn't work. You don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Well, speaking of that kind of connection, before we finish, we have to let people know how to find Cat Wanders, because she's got this great collection of books that she's done. She's got all this. How do they find out about you?
Right now, I do have my website, catwanders.com. That's probably your best bet. Right now, it's focused mostly on my editing business as I slowly...
And let's spell it out, because there's a spelling here, and this is a podcast, so we have to make sure people know how to spell it. So how do they spell it out?
So don't try to put a U in it. But Cat Wanders is QATWANDERS. Wanders is spelled normally, but cat with a Q. QAT is how it's spelled. No U.
There we go.
Otherwise, it would be quat. But
do you edit
.com at the end of that, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to go. Otherwise, if they don't put the .com in, they probably won't find it.
Yes, catwanders.com.
Just saying. Sorry,
do you edit fiction?
I do.
You do.
That's my favorite to edit.
Okay, I've written a couple fiction, and they're on Amazon, on the Kindle, the direct publishing thing, but they're very poorly edited.
a lot are, unfortunately.
Yeah.
it's a skill that takes time and it's expensive. Like getting editing for a self-published book is expensive. And I try to keep my prices as low as possible, but it's definitely like, because I know how much investment it takes for an author. But yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It is a ton of work. It really is. So, well, I'll tell you what has not been a lot of work. That's been interviewing you. You've been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much
it's
for joining
been fun
us
listening. Fun.
It was so much fun to be here.
I'm looking forward to learn more about Tya. You just made my appetite more whetted. So thank you very much for that.
I'm so excited for your call. Have so much fun.
Definitely.
I'm really looking forward to it too. So thank you, Cat Wanderers. Really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you, Shelley, as usual. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.